Greetings. We have got past the table of contents in the finished mystery. We're actually on the explanatory note and page 11, where they open up the commentary. But in the explanatory note, there's abbreviations listed, and most of them are publications of Russell and Watchtower, Tabernacle of Shadows. Some pamphlets like Spiritism are alluded to. But then there's a list at the bottom of the page of, well, what to most witnesses would be unknown sources. Yeah. Barnes' Revelation, interesting. The Encyclopedia Britannica, Buck's Theological Dictionary, Coffin's Story of Liberty, Cook's Revelation, that's from the Cook Commentary, which you'll find very frequently alluded to in this book, Edgar, Pyramid Passages, McClintock and Strong's Cyclopedia, Mosheim's Ecclesiastical History, Smith's Bible Dictionary, and another Smith apparently, Thoughts on Daniel and Revelation, Weymouth, New Testament in Modern Speech. So we should make the point that there were very few English Bibles available in those days, so they're referring to one that did exist, Weymouth, and the Revised Version, which had been published about 30 years before this book, The Finished Mystery. And then there's the American Standard Version, which had come out in 1901. So there's very few English options for them to choose from. But most of these names are standard Christendom commentaries and or histories. So you wouldn't know that, of course. So again, all the way back to the beginning, despite the fact that The Finished Mystery is a complete denunciation of Christendom.
Yeah, they're using their materials, their tools.
Yeah, with two exceptions that I can note. One is Edgar's Pyramid Passages. That's not standard. That's something that the Watchtower was, of course, completely fascinated with in those early decades. And then there's Smith, Thoughts on Daniel and Revelation. This seems to be Uriah Smith, who is Seventh-day Adventist authority. He was the guy, the go-to guy for Ellen G. White and the others that were alive at that time on Daniel and Revelation. But he totally bought into the year-day theory, which they carry over from Adventism into, to this day with their calculation about 1914. But Uriah Smith was one of the few that were clinging to the year-day theory during this generation. The Adventists based their foundation theology, 1844. That's year-day calculation based on Daniel. So it's interesting that they go to Smith as one of their key sources on Daniel and Revelation.
Now, I have to make an admission that when I read this 30-something years ago, when I was first doing my research to try and get you back in, I didn't notice any of the references. I was not a reference reader. I didn't look at footnotes and any reference points. I should have, but I was never taught to do that. So I would say this time around, I guess I'd like to see how they use their references, because now I'm aware that they sometimes misuse or use it like they do the Bible, cherry pick out of context. So that would be something that I would want to watch for.
And you get your first chance on the first page here, page 11, that is, in the commentary, because they make a major blunder here. And you don't know if it's a deliberate blunder or they just don't know how to research properly. Anyway, we'll get into that shortly. Here's the very first verses they deal with in their commentary on Revelation. And interestingly, they've chosen as their subtitle for this page, The Message for This Day, which again shows their orientation is around their significance, the significance of this day for you. The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him to show unto his servants or saints the things which must shortly come to pass.
So they always break it up and then tell you what these phrases mean. So the first one, the revelation of Jesus Christ, they say, John the Revelator and the prophet Habakkuk have foretold that the understanding of this revelation, given in 96 A.D., is set for an appointed time, the end of the age, and that at this time, now, when the predicted faithful and wise servant would be present with God's people, the vision would be made plain. Then the phrase, which God gave unto him, they say, the declaration that the Son can do nothing of himself, if it were not backed up, as it is, by a score of other testimonies from the same interested and inspired teacher, is a contradiction to the common thought of the Trinitarians, that the Son is the Father.
And that's a direct quote from Zion's Watchtower of 1899. And then you stop to wonder. There's two things here that are really serious. One is that a deliberate misrepresentation of the Trinity? And the other thing is, they've used this verse, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him, to demote Christ. They've made it about bringing him down from his throne, which is obviously there in the book. He's literally on the throne. When you last see Jesus Christ in the Revelation, he's on God's throne, the Lamb sitting in the midst of the throne. You've brought him down already because you don't realize, apparently, that the revelation of Jesus Christ is not just saying this is from Jesus Christ. It's saying this book is about Jesus Christ. No fewer than 28 titles or names of Christ are in this book of Revelation.
But I'm also seeing they immediately bring in the faithful and discreet slave. First paragraph. So this has been important to the witnesses forever. And it's because they view it as a prediction of either a person or them. In this case, they're still believing that Russell was the FDS,
individual,
the faithful and wise servant. And so this is elevating him to actually know what this is about.
Yeah. And so the connection right in the middle of the first paragraph, at this time, when the predicted faithful and wise servant would be present.
Yeah.
So the connection of the time, again, the year-day theory, Uriah Smith, etc., this idea that we've got the right time, therefore the faithful and discreet slave must be present.
Yeah. And
the two foundation
stones. They will
stones.
be able to explain it all.
Yeah. But then about their ability to do research, you've got this, what amounts to a serious misstatement or a misrepresentation of the Trinity here.
Yeah.
What do they say again?
That the Son is the Father.
Now, where do you find that in the official documents of Christianity, that the Son is the Father? Actually, you find a repudiation of that thought. If you go to the Athanasian Creed, about 1,500 years ago, you've got a clear statement that the Trinity does not confound the persons. So they flatly deny what Russell and his cohorts assert here, namely that the Son is the Father.
No. Yeah.
So what is that? That's either a deliberate misstatement of the facts or just sloppiness.
Yeah. I think it's too that one means to them a unit. It's got to be just a single unit. So in their thinking and witnesses today, that means they're all the same. They're the same. Son is the Father is the Son. But that's not what the Creed says.
But surely a decent researcher, and I at least give Russell credit for being a researcher because he often shows some knowledge of church history, and this book shows some knowledge of church history. But nobody in church history asserts that the Son is the Father except heretics, not Trinitarians. So the fact that you misunderstand this or choose to misrepresent it, if you do understand it,
is that you can't trust them.
So either you're just a lousy researcher, sloppy, and can't be trusted, therefore, or you're deliberately misrepresenting the facts, in which case you can't be trusted.
Yeah.
And then in the next 3 little paragraphs, covering to show his saints or servants the things which must shortly come to pass, they say, our Lord Jesus has promised us that, as the elder brother of the gospel house of sons, I've never heard that expression before, whatsoever the Father shall make known to him, he in turn will make known to us. Again, it's about us. That's also from the 1899 Watchtower. the shifting scenes of church and state, the history of the gospel and millennial ages, which must shortly come to pass, which began at once in St. John's day, will continue until the completion of all that he foresaw. And there their debt is to what is called historicism, the approach to revelation that Uriah Smith of the Adventists represents. He's one of the last to cling to this idea that Protestants used to have until about 150 to 200 years ago. The idea that Revelation is about the complete span of history. And even the 7 churches of the first 3 chapters are predictive of 7 periods of church history. This was very common, and Russell inherited it from the Adventists. So, of course, they've abandoned that thought today. They don't any longer think that Revelation is a picture of the entire course of church history. But back then they were absolutely devoted to this thought, from which they derived the idea that, well, the Church of Laodicea is the last age, and we must have a person on the planet today who is the angel of the Church of Laodicea.
So that's the dispensationalists believe that, right?
Some, but not too many.
Not anymore, or just at the time.
But Protestants and Catholics too, for a while, believed that the Book of Revelation was predictive of church history. That the vials and the trumpets and even the 7 seals were periods of church history and predicted things like the Muslim invasions, etc. But that's all been scrapped by most commentaries on Revelation, but Uriah Smith among the Adventists kept it alive, and of course Russell carried it into today.
Yeah.
Today's Watchtower theology. So I'm disappointed as I look at the first page to see something that looks catastrophic in terms of its implications. You can't even represent your sources faithfully.
Yeah. You can look up what the creed actually said about the Father and Son. We looked it up in Wikipedia. They have a
but it's easy to find even in those days.
Athanasian
Look in any
creed.
They've cited Britannica here. All you had to do is look in Encyclopedia Britannica under creeds or Athanasian creed, and you would have found it.
Yeah.
There's no excuse.
So since they're using their tools, they should have been able to find it.
Yeah.
Also, they have to give credit to Christendom for even having a Bible that they could use.
Well, that's right.
And yet, this book is the beginning of a lot of denunciation of Christendom.
Yeah. So they have it both ways here. Again, they still have it both ways today.
Yeah.
When they need sources from Christendom, they cite them and apparently do their homework, but at the same time say that all of this is not of God.
Yeah, so why use it? And how was God telling anyone anything all these years?
We've got a link, which is, I think, one of our it is one of our Revelation playlists, right? 8 jolts that jolted 2 Jehovah's Witnesses, and they're all based on the 8 jolts are all found in the very first chapter of Revelation. So Revelation chapter 1.
And we'll put the playlist on as well, the Revelation playlist that we have. And
the first of the Revelation playlist is a coverage of the different books that the Watchtower has published over the almost century and 4 decades now about the Book of Revelation.
Right.
See you soon.